VI Lenin Corteries abroad and Russian liquidators published, Zapravdu number 46, November 28, 1913. Published according to the Zapravdu text. Source: Lenin Collected Works, Progress Publishers, 1977, Moscow, Volume 19, pages 508 to 510. Translated, the late George Hanna transcription / markup, art symbol of public domain, Lenin Internet Archive. You may freely copy, distribute, display and perform this work, as well as make derivative and commercial works. Please credit Marxists Internet Archive as your source. README, issue number 86 of Novaya Rabochaya Gazeta contains a scurrilous article against Social Democrats that deserves attention in spite of its abusive character and in spite of the insinuations of which everybody is sick and tired. This article is entitled "The German Social Democratic Press on the Split." It deserves attention because it very clearly explains to Russian workers something they have not known up to now, and which they ought to know. They ought to know what intrigues the coteries of Russian Social Democrats abroad are hatching against the Social Democratic organization in Russia, for ignorance of these intrigues constantly and inevitably condemns many Russian Social Democrats to making comic and tragicomic mistakes. The Liquidators article commences with italics. Not a single voice has so far been heard in the ranks of the German Social Democrats in favor of a split. By split, the Liquidators mean the building of a Marxist organization in opposition to the Liquidators. Note the italics in the first sentence of the article, not a single voice. The worn-out trick of the bourgeois hack writer. Not everybody reads a newspaper through to the end, but everybody sees the first striking words of an article. Read the Liquidators article further. It quotes the opinion of a Frankfurt newspaper, which is, of course, in favor of the Liquidators, but it says nothing about the fact that this newspaper is an opportunist one. My dear Liquidators, do you think the Russian workers are fools who do not know that there are opportunists among the German Social Democrats, and that the Socialist, alleged, monthly, the chief organ of the German opportunists, constantly supports Nasha Zarya? We read further. The opinion of a Dresden newspaper. It condemns the split in general. Neither the newspaper's sympathies in Russian affairs, nor its position on German affairs is indicated. The Liquidators do not want to enlighten the Russian workers, but to fool them by leaving a number of things unsaid. We read further. The Leipzig organ of the Social Democrats a fortnight ago published a report from Russia describing the situation in tones rather favorable to the schismatics. This is literally what is published in the Liquidator newspaper. And, of course, not a word in italics. And, of course, not a word, not a syllable, not a sound on the substance of that unpleasant report. Oh, we are past masters in the art of petty trickery and miserable intrigue. On the one hand, we have italics, not a single voice. And on the other hand, the only report from Russia turns out to be written in tones rather favorable to the opponents of the Liquidators. We read further. The issue of the Leipzig Social Democratic newspaper of November 15 contains a long editorial, Liquidators italics. Article, from which only the passages that favor the Liquidators are quoted. Russian workers. It is high time you learn to expose the Liquidators' lies. The Liquidators print the word editorial in italics. This is a lie. The article is signed with the initials JK, that is, it is not an editorial article, but an article by an individual contributor. The Liquidators are deceiving the Russian workers in the most brazen and insolent manner. This is not all. The Liquidators concealed the fact that in this very same report the 7 are called shameless splitters for admitting Jagello to the Duma group, in opposition to the will of the Polish Social Democrats. And this is still not all. The Liquidators concealed a fact which is obvious to every politically informed person. The article signed JK was written by one of Tishka's supporters. All the evidence goes to prove this. Tishka supporters are the group of Rosa Luxemburg, Tishka and Company in Berlin, those who circulated a most abominable rumor about the presence of provocateurs in the Warsaw Social Democratic Organization. Even Luch, true, this was after Jagello had been smuggled into the Duma group, admitted that this was abominable. Even Novaya Rabochaya Gazeta has admitted more than once that Tishka and Company do not represent the Polish Social Democratic workers of Warsaw in fighting against the Workers' Insurance Center, to which the Bund, the Lefts and the Polish Social Democrats, of Warsaw, and not Tishka and Company, of course, are affiliated. And now, in order to fool the Russian workers, the Liquidators clutch at the coattails of the Tishka crowd. A drowning man clutches at a straw, even at a filthy and rotten one. The article of the Tishka supporter, JK, like all the pronouncements of that group, throbs with but one desire, to hatch an intrigue around the split, to make a little political capital out of it. Pretending that coteries divorced from the working class movement in Russia are viable political organizations, hatching intrigues around this, uttering sentimental phrases instead of studying events in Russia, such as the nature of Tishkaism, and it is, what 9/10 of the separate and independent coteries abroad are engaged in. They seem now to be reviving in the hope of being able to play on the split between the 6 and the 7. Vain hope. Russian worker Social Democrats have matured sufficiently to be able themselves to decide the fate of their organization by a majority vote, and contemptuously to brush aside the intrigues of the coteries abroad. Members of these coteries very often write in the German Social Democratic press expressing the point of view of these coteries. But it is not at all difficult to recognize this crowd by their ears. Notes J.K. J. Karski, pseudonym of J.J. Marchluski. Works Index Volume 19 Collected Works LIA Index Backward Forward.